Hey folks, it's George Leoniak here at New Geometry, and I'm excited to be here, sharing another video with you. Today's going to be a special one. It's on the Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra, the star polyhedra. And it's amazing that the golden circle templates, you'll see those in just a moment, have kind of led me to discover how to draw those four-star polyhedra from three different perspectives and views. So today's going to kind of be like a lot of eye candy, not too heavy and kind of too much description about each form or how to draw them. There'll be enough of the methods here that you could pause the video at any point, and if you have some skill with sacred geometry, you should be able to draw them just by looking at the images. So yeah, earlier this week, I kind of challenged myself to really look into those golden circle templates to see if I could find all the polyhedra, star polyhedra that are there. And yes, those four regular star polyhedra are in there. So let me just show you through the presentation and we'll carry on from there. So, all right, so yes, here, this is just a kind of quick overlay of kind of where we're going with this whole presentation. I just laid all the star polyhedra out. Now, these are the regular star polyhedra. There's a lot of other types of star forms that can be created. But these ones are really comparable to kind of like the platonic solids. The only real difference is that they're using the pentagonal face or a pentagram face to create as a polygon, basically, to create the intersections where the five-pointed stars will meet at vertices, creating these awesome stellated forms. A lot of them they're mostly related to the icosahedron and dodecahedron. So it's not surprising with the correction of the dodecahedron and icosahedron that all of a sudden these star polyhedra started to emerge from my drawings because of the phi ratio circles that were involved. I didn't go in looking for these. They just kind of emerged on their own with the drawings. So we're going to look at these: great icosahedron, the great dodecahedron, great stellated dodecahedron, small stellated dodecahedron. From the threefold symmetry, twofold symmetry, and fivefold symmetry. I also often call this a hexagon view, square view, and the pentagon view. Now, they all have something in common, and this is something to just get right up front. This is the key to this whole drawing system that I've kind of generated on my own here. First of all, it corrected all the platonic solids, especially the dodecahedron and icosahedron. The other ones were all good in the flower of life and seed of life, the tetrahedron, octahedron, and the cube. But really, the icosahedron and dodecahedron needed some help. And what it really needed was phi proportion put into those seed of life pattern, at least from the flower of life perspective, flower of life view. And this is really all you need to do. It's very simple to get that phi relationship red circle to the blue circle. So if the diameter of the blue circle is 1, just by doing that division, it's already in the vesica, right? To me, I really started to see, well, this is like a cut, and it's often called the divine cut, the divine proportion. But this one line is all it takes within the normal vesica Pisces to just make that line, and that gives you the point where you draw that circle, and then you're really up and running. So, this is the key up front for you to unlock the rest of the drawings for you. These are the golden circle templates because they all incorporate the golden circles, 3 tiers of golden circles, 1, 2, 3, that are all generated from the previous step that I had just shown you. So this is, I applied the same technique, the same starting technique to the threefold symmetry, which will give us the hexagonal seed of life, flower of life view. The twofold symmetry, which is going to be more of the square view version of things. And the fivefolds will be looking down at the vertex of the icosahedron in this view. This view will be looking at the edge, and in this view, we'll be looking at the flat face of the icosahedron. Okay, so that's kind of just the main overview, and now it's just here's the eye candy piece. We're just going to kind of slowly go through these. I'm not going to say a ton about them. I mean, they have certain properties. You can look them up on Wikipedia. I'll tell you, this one is the dual of the Great Dodecahedron, which is coming next. So the four of these are dual forms. And here's the threefold symmetry version and the square view. And it's just amazing to me to see how different each of these views look. Now, the important thing is to mention here is if you do these drawings, if you use the same size circle, doesn't mean it's going to give you the same size form. You'd have to adjust the size of your circles to get the proportions of your form correct. But it will draw it accurately. But look at the difference here for the small stellated dodecahedron compared to the other two here. So you might have a certain inclination or a preference or a calling to one of these drawings from a certain angle, and each one is kind of giving you more of a well-rounded information around the whole. But as you can see, all the lines that we're looking at within this form are connecting to the phi ratio points along the phi ratio golden circles. So, here's just to isolate a pentagram from a side orientation. I'll just kind of trace it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So picture, another one meeting at this plane. Now the backside of it would be behind. Similarly, we can do that with this orientation. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, that's one pentagram face. Now these are the pentagram faces. It's easy to see in this one because it is just how we normally see the pentagram. These are the pentagram faces that are coming together to make these forms. So here's the close-ups. We're just going to these are the ones you can pause the video. All so straightforward. This is actually kind of like the Great Icosahedron drawing that I did a few videos back, because so much of this view is now centered around the icosahedron. And I'm going to do some more with the cube and show you how the cube all integrates this into in future videos. So that's the hexagon view, the twofold symmetry. Here's that Pentagon star. It's really neat to see where the Pentagon stars, because we're not used to kind of seeing them at those angles. Here's one here too. So just start tracing these lines out and you'll start to follow the line. Now the point back here is back behind here, so we don't actually see it. The next one in the sequence is the regular pentagram face. Now, these are regular polyhedra, as I had mentioned. The only caveat here is that you have to treat the pentagram star as a polygon face rather than the pentagram in this form. And when you do, you can construct these forms. So they are regular. They're basically, like the platonic solids, the 5 platonic solids. These are the 4 star polyhedra. Now, just a little history lesson. I thought I'd include this. Johannes Kepler, was the first person to discover this form, small stellated, and the small stellated dodecahedron and the great stellated dodecahedron. You'll see in a moment. We'll talk about these on the first opening page. So Johannes Kepler, he worked with these two forms. Now, he wasn't the first person to discover. So there's some drawings, and there's even a mosaic in the St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, Italy. They have some of these forms. So they were kind of coming into the consciousness slowly, and then Johannes Kepler discovered them 1618, and then they were rediscovered by Poinsot in 1809. And he rediscovered them, so he didn't really see Kepler's work, I imagine, at that point. And he added the Great Icosahedron and the Great Dodecahedron. And then that was 1809. 100 years later, John Conway kind of came up with the whole operational system of how these kind of the duality between them and how there's a greatening or stellation process involved in these. You could check that out on the Wikipedia site, the little flow chart that he has there. But I'm primarily going to approach this from the sacred geometry drawing. How do we integrate these star polyhedra into sacred geometry so that you at home or myself or anybody who's interested in just drawing circles with the compass and straight edge can start to draw these, which were to me kind of like inaccessible, at least the majority of these. There was a few versions I've seen around, particularly the great stellated dodecahedron and the small stellated one. But these other ones, like the great dodecahedron, you hardly see anybody talking about this one. Now, this is the pentagram star here, is kind of like raised up out of this icosahedral face. It's really the dodecahedrons. Picture the pentagon face kind of expanding. So this is what the greatening is called, but it does contain the convex, the hull, the outer shell of it is an icosahedron. So it perfectly fits into the drawings that I had been doing here. And similarly, here is the great dodecahedron from the square view, twofold, as well as the straight down pentagon star. So let's look at the large versions of these. Great dodecahedron, yep, so just check that out. I mean, it's like, you see people sometimes, at least here in Vermont, like on people's barns, they have this kind of raised star that's kind of inflated, you know, it's not a flat 2D version of the star. This is very well, probably the proportions of that are related to this raised star. Now picture that flat pentagon face is just flat. It's so cool. You know, when you color these in and shade them, you'll really be able to highlight those rays. So here's that pentagon star, the raised star. So this vertex here is a part of an icosahedron raised up, and this is the star point, you know, so it doesn't continue all the way through because this edge here is blocking it. So you got to work with your imagination, your three-dimensional mind, get your mind's eye working to pull this image up and out of the flatland and into the 3D world. Of course, we can make these quite easily now too. Yeah, so here it is laying into the template. Golden circle templates are awesome. They've just like, I've kind of created this little system here for myself that I'm very eager to share with many people. My apprentices really enjoyed working with this, and you know, planning to share, continue to share it, because I really feel that it's such a foundational pattern to sacred geometry. Not only does it work with the platonic solids, as I mentioned, but now we get the star polyhedron and a lot of other things that I'll be sharing soon. So here's the raised star. It looks like a flat star, but picture this sloping down and kind of, you know, that whole star is kind of inflated. Okay, so let's go on to the great stellated dodecahedron. This is a really cool one. You know, it kind of like, it creates the outer hull of the dodecahedron, you know, so when you connect all these vertices outside of here, it will be a full-on dodecahedron. And, you know, it's built off of the icosahedron in the center. Like, I think a lot of people, I think Kepler even might have called this a great stellated icosahedron, or just a stellated icosahedron, because you're basically stellating the points of an icosahedron to create this. So I'd like to know a little bit more about the naming of why it's the great stellated dodecahedron, because the base of form in here is the icosahedron at the center. So here's another one. We could do that cool thing with the star points, right? So let's see if I could isolate one here. You just start tracing it out. Where's an easy one? Here, back to there. Oh yeah, it's way out here. Yep, so you'd have to kind of trace this one out like this. So you can hunt around in here and kind of find where these star points are. Here it is again from this view. Now you'll notice, like, oh, whoops, nope, these aren't touching here, right? Well, this actually would form a square around this phi circle here that's in the middle, the 0.618 circle. So it is kind of part of the sequence. You really just have to extend this line and extend that line in order to meet those up. Not a real big deal. It's just an extension of the base icosahedron line until you get that. But if you drew a line to connect here, it would just basically enclose that middle phi-based square. Now here you could see the star kind of tilted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're working with those pentagram face. Now they're meeting at a triangular peak. So there's 3 planes that are coming together to meet. So once again, we're taking those pentagram stars and putting them together. So, I mean, the key thing here is that the pentagram is like hugely important all of a sudden. It's not just the face of of a dodecahedron, if you extend these out, all of a sudden you're creating these star polyhedra. So we're treating that as a polygon, the 5-pointed star, which is just so significant to bring these drawings are bringing that back. You know, the 5-pointed star has such a stigma around it, but it also is the key to these expanded forms. I mean, there's so much more going on than the cube and the tetrahedron, the star tetrahedron, which here it is, which is, you know, it's basically a stellated octahedron at the center of this, but it's not even really considered to be stellated because these are just really a compound of two tetrahedrons. These forms that we're showing you here are not compounds of any forms. They're just their own stellated forms through the 5-pointed stars. So great stellated dodecahedron, and these are the close-up versions of this. You had a good look at that while I was talking. Once again, just, you know, have fun tracing out the stars. Pause the video on this one a lot just to really check these out. You know, I've been working on these for months now. And really this week, I knew they were all in there. I had already discovered 3, but then I finally was like, okay, I got to figure out the Great Icosahedron, because this is the one that is really different than the other previous 3. The other ones were really working with the Pentagram Star, and that Pentagram Star is still in there in these views. But what's happening here is the Great Icosahedron is working with the triangular face. This is another version of that greatening, like it was within the Great Dodecahedron, how it greatens that triangular face till it extends out. So this triangular face has been greatened from the smaller little icosahedron that would be at the center of this. It's been greatened, and then those 20 faces come together to create this awesome form. Now, this took some work to figure out exactly where these little raised sections are, because these are meant to have little convex ridge patterns. So these are like ridges extending out here. So this one was really the kind of the challenge of all of them, because it wasn't working as much, but all the lines magically connect. And what you have to do here, if you're looking for these lines, take a straight edge, pause the video when I go through these slides. You know, take a straight edge, just line it up right here, and you'll see where the end point for these connecting lines are. I'm pretty sure they're all accurate on it. Okay, so that's the 3-fold symmetry view of the Great Icosahedron. Once again, you could see the outline of the 5-pointed star in here, but now it's got this concavities that are going in. This is sunken down into this because we're dealing with large triangular faces, which is just really cool. So yeah, the Great Icosahedron, very special. Now, we're gonna revisit this one because pretty soon, my next video probably is going to be getting into the 59 stellations of the icosahedron and opening up that template. It's just amazing what these 5-circle diagrams, the golden circles, are doing. I'm really excited to share on the next piece. I've been working on that, you know, the past couple of days. It's really become crystallized because of this Great Icosahedron when I started to build it 3D. So here's another view of this one. You could see the pentagram faces in here, but now we've got these other raised ridges. So very kind of unusual. It's actually the same shape that we're working with as the great. I'll just back up to show you. It's essentially this same shape of the small stellated dodecahedron. I mean, it's the same outline. We just have to now find where that central lines are to subdivide those kind of raised ridges within this form. And I'm sorry, these are probably not the technical terms for this, but that's the way I'm defining this kind of ridge that's sunken back down in there. So yeah, here's the Great Icosahedron from the 5-fold symmetry view. Just a really neat form. And then I had a big surprise. You know, we're getting close to wrapping up here. Because, you know, like when I explored the sacred geometry, I don't know what's coming next. I don't know. I don't actually go in like saying I want to look for these forms a lot of times. I didn't even know that these forms could be in the 4th dimension. Now, I have a few videos to talk about the 4D tesseract and the pentaract, 5D pentaract and the 600 cell. So I was scrolling through the Wikipedia site and I saw that there's something called the Grand 600 cell that's based on the Great Icosahedron. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this just brought me to the 4D version of the Great Icosahedron. Now, these stellated forms, all four of these regular polytopes here, the polyhedra, they'll only go to the fourth dimension. So we're not going to get fifth dimension forms of these star polyhedron, from what I've read at least. But these are the 4D versions. Now, this is kind of an orthogonal projection. I've taken some of the other drawings that are shown on the Wikipedia site to compare. This one is kind of now created as if it were a three-dimensional form, but as we know, the 4D forms are not really three-dimensional. We can only look at it from one perspective and say, hey, that looks three-dimensional, but once you turn it, it looks like something completely different. But this would have 600 cells, and it's called the Grand Tetrahedron. And, amazingly, all these lines, I really, this may be a little iffy here in the middle. I tried to figure exactly what was going on there. But, I'd say 99% of them, I was pretty, 98%, I was pretty certain of what was going on and where they were connected in this drawing. So yeah, really special to at least come up with this one as a looking solid polyhedron, and it just add a little color to the black and white. This was really fun to kind of spice up with a little bit of color. Some shading in there would really bring out the kind of depth to this as well. But that was kind of a really, for me, whenever the another dimension kind of verifies the kind of specialness of the system that's been working on here with the 5 circles. And it's like, okay, the fourth dimension just came in and said, hey, you're doing a good job working with your 3D versions of these. So these are the like I said, the 3 views of the 4 Kepler Poinsot polyhedra that can all be drawn with the sacred geometry methods of compass and a straight edge and a pencil and a drawing pad, and you're all good to go. So anyway, yeah, that was kind of a lot of eye candy in there. I hope you had enjoyed just checking that out. If you're drawing sacred geometry, let me know how that works. If you're really new to this subject and are inspired by what you're seeing and would like to get into this, and even starting more with like the basic material of just drawing the platonic solids and working with the regular patterns, with the phi base circles that I'm working with and things like that, check out, I got a Patreon that I'm doing where I've got some great material for getting people started in sacred geometry. And I've got my apprenticeship that is an 8-week apprenticeship starting up in March again. So once again, I hope you really enjoyed checking out these videos, and I'm just so thankful that I got to share this with you. And I'm looking forward to coming back next time and sharing some more awesome sacred geometry and sharing the sacred with you. So much love and peace.